Yeah, so we're at the top of the hour. Welcome to community session 2. We're going to go ahead and get started. And in lieu of not having the video, we'll just move on to the next one, and I'll work on that video right now. Cool. Thank you, everyone. Great. It looks like people are starting to arrive now. We can go ahead whenever you're ready, and I will be working on seeing if I can get a hold of that video.
I'm sorry, Roller, do you want me to go?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I wasn't finding it, and I'm not.
Okay, yes, we can self-organize here. Hold on one second. Let me pull this up from the beginning then. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Jessica Taylor. I will be presenting this on behalf of the GLOBE Partnership at NASA Langley Research Center. We are on the
Sarah
GLOBE
just
mission.
posted the link to the video in the chat.
Yeah, let's do that after Jessica, since she started already.
Oh, am I messing up? Sorry, Jessica.
No, it's okay.
I just barely broke in here because I couldn't get in. Sorry.
No worries. I'm going to be sharing about lessons learned from our virtual educator cohort that we did this last year. So why did we do it? Well, we were feeling as though we were disconnected from a lot of our classroom teachers in that first year of the pandemic. And so we decided to put together a virtual cohort. And we had an application process across the United States. And the selection criteria and how we ranked teachers were looking for schools that served students underrepresented in STEM. And we were also looking for teams of teachers. And I'll talk about this a little more in that it actually didn't pan out for us to do that. We had selected 18 teachers from 7 different schools. And actually what happened was a lot of the teams wound up falling apart throughout the year for lots of different reasons. Some teachers got reassigned, some had medical issues. They just couldn't figure out the time in their classroom. But these were all middle and high school teachers, predominantly new to the GLOBE program. So the big picture here, well, what happened with those 18 different teachers? We wound up having a culminating student showcase, and over 120 students participated in some way doing a virtual engagement, just like we're doing right now, where they presented their work. And so these are some of the various topics. We had done a GLOBE atmosphere training. And so you'll see that the topics that they presented on were, for the most part, atmosphere specific, but we did let them do whatever it is that they felt they could accomplish, including a presentation that was talking about cloud types from a lot of our multilingual learners at a school in North Carolina. And we brought our scientists from NASA who spoke Spanish so they could present in English, but then do questions and answers in Spanish. What was their overall take? Well, and our take was that this was just another really, really difficult year for teachers. The key was following up with them a lot and just continuing to try to engage them in whatever way that they were open to. They specifically needed a lot of training on the data collection and data entry and a lot of support with that. And we found that very specific tasks and asks were important. As much as we want to allow for open-ended, that actually was a stressor to many of the teachers. And then I'll talk about the pacing guides and how well received those were. Some of the barriers were technology, particularly in using the app. We had a number of schools that were struggling to figure out compliance with student privacy and just how to manage all of the devices. We talked about teams and student accounts at the beginning, and I think we will wait to talk about those next time because that just, it's an extra layer of complexity. And let's not forget the importance of just using the paper data collection sheet was something that we found success with a lot of our teachers, just doing that and then having the one teacher submit the observation for the class. There were, as you can imagine, challenges finding time to incorporate the investigations. And so again, trying to focus their attention, providing a limited scope, very specific activities was helpful to doing that. And then in terms of engaging students, a lot of these teachers have never taken their classrooms outside. And so the classroom management part for them was a little stressful, but that was actually the best way to engage the students. And so going outside was something that they found actually to be helpful once they got over their fear of taking a whole class outside. And they also found another one of our platforms with Zooniverse, Cloud Gaze, to be very engaging as well. Standards and curriculum are just continue to be something that our teachers ask for in terms of how to help align the activities with what they're doing in the class. And so the pacing guides that we have developed, which I'll put a link for at the end, are aligned to next generation science standards. And we have found that even this high level of standard alignment is helpful even for states that are not NGSS states in the United States, because they can at least start to see where those connections might fall for their state specific standards. Now, one of the things that we were hoping for is that there would be this teacher to teacher collaboration, which, as I mentioned, just really didn't pan out. And so in general, even though they applied as teams, they wound up not really acting as a team at their school site. And so what this meant to us is that this next year, we're gonna just have to pay attention to that and build in activities throughout the ongoing support throughout that year to encourage collaboration and to try to figure out platforms and avenues that'll help with that. And so we'll actually be doing some peer review this year of some students' work to other students' work. And so hopefully that helps them begin to feel like a true cohort. So one of the things I mentioned was how to package everything in a way that teachers felt like they could have a quick success. And so as an outcome of working with these teachers, we developed pacing guides. And these are 5-day pacing guides or a series of 5 activities that can be done in conjunction with using the Globe Observer app. In other words, teachers could go through and do e-training and get certified, but they could also get started right away if they were using the app. And so these are the topics that we have developed these pacing guides around: mosquito habitat, air quality, cloud types, clouds and energy budget, plant phenology, trees and carbon cycle, and urban heat island. You'll see that the grade bands differ. And again, those grade bands were really focused on where it fell within the United States next generation science standards, but were included a bunch of other resources to make it flexible. So we have done a selection process for this next school year, and we have 20 teachers selected from across the country, and we're very excited to have a number of teachers from Puerto Rico this year. And so we have already done our kickoff session with them, trying to get them acclimated to a virtual platform. As you know, digital can be harder. And we will be providing support for those teachers who want bilingual support. We'll be doing that as well. And so that's just a little bit of extra work, but we're really excited to see what happens with that. And so these will be the cohort of teachers. And if you're from any of these states and want to know more about the teachers selected from your area, please let me know. All right, so I'm going to end there. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you to the Globe Mission Earth team. This is a part of that and the NASA Science Activation Project. And a big shout out to Angie Rizzi, who can't be here this week, who was the coordinator for last year's cohort. And this year it will be Rosalba on our team. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we did get the video in, so I'll go ahead and pull this up. Share sound. Just 1 second here. Okay, it looks like it's working now. Okay, it looks like it froze. We'll move on to the next one while I fix this. Sorry. It's doing this. Oh, there we go. Here it
I'm
is.
pleased to introduce you to a quick tour of the Welcome. I'm pleased to introduce you to a quick tour of the NASA Glows Kids Club, which is a program started during COVID times to help families and children directly have access to the Globe curriculum, which began in 6 weeks in April and May. The team, which created the Globe's Kids Club, and it would be available to children on Wednesday afternoons between 4:30 and 5. To recruit students, we created a flyer, which was sent out to Globe teachers, and students were recruited and given those who signed up by recruiting were given a NASA media release form. We were pleased to say that we had 25 students register and join us. To prepare for our sessions, students were sent a Globe Kids Club toolkit, which included a notebook, science notebook, materials from the Globe curriculum, storybooks, cloud charts, and measurement materials. Here's a screenshot of our typical meeting. As you can see, the Globe team is joining 20 students who actually came from as far as Virginia, Michigan, Ohio, and Florida. And each student was readily available to contribute and including contributing in the chat. Students would share their notebooks. Actually, they were taught to try to do 4 observations over a week, describing what they saw and what happened. And as you can see, they began to learn their cloud types and what happened at particular times. Students raised their hand on Zoom, and as you can see, they would hold their notebooks up. As time went on, students added increased information that they learned, including cloud types, sky colors, the dates, the temperatures, the times, and weather patterns they were actually seeing on their own, adding to the material they'd learned. Fascinating, as time went on, the quality of their work improved. As you can see here, you have student work that includes specific times of activities, the difference between height and sky color included. So the variety of things they're learning became much more sophisticated. In later April and May, when they got to Budburst activities, as you could see, they included both observational drawings and sometimes pasted in photos of specifics they saw. You could actually be capturing the activities of a bud burst where students had observed a single tree limb, and you can see even some of them began using the measuring tapes and actually created how far the actual measurements and differences they saw on a daily basis. In order to actually see what students were learning, the Globe team used the Aegis story map to engage their observations and could bring up information specific to where they were located. And here's some examples of where our students were located. A typical session, we'll run through it, included an icebreaker activity, and we taught students, Jessica Till in particular, a cloud dance, and students learned to move into puffy, wispy, and blanket. And from there, I turn it over to my colleague.
Hi, yes, so we also taught the students science about clouds, bud burst, and tree height. And so that's an example. Here's an example. We did a mini lesson on clouds. You go to the next slide. So this is the PowerPoint, part of the PowerPoint I showed them, that clouds are made up of different shapes. And then the next slide will show you that we looked at the clouds for different heights, but we really focused on the three main cloud types: stratus, cumulus, and cirrus. And then what we found, of course, is that the students knew their clouds better than that. So they knew the alto stratus and alto cumulus clouds, even though we were focused on the three main cloud types, which was good. We also focused on sky color and related that back to the book, Elementary Globe book, Up in the Atmosphere. We linked up to other globe materials. Of course, the activities on sky color, the What's Up in the Atmosphere book. Next slide. We had a special guest, Brian Campbell from NASA, talked about ICESat-2 and tree height. And it's always great to have them and get that NASA perspective. Now we're going to look at some of the photo album. We had the kids upload, or parents upload, pictures of their work to a photo album on Google Drive. And you can see them here. So you have to have the pictures. We have the story map, some of our own screenshots. You can see the snow on the ground in northern Michigan. And then here's some of the drawings from the students that Evangeline shared. So it was an easy way for us to gather information from the students and for the students to see what each other are doing. All right, well, thank you. And that's our presentation.
Thank you.
Hello, whoops, let's start at the beginning. Hello and welcome to our presentation on strengthening student storytelling voice using Globe and NASA assets. I'm Marcia Barton, a Globe partner in New Mexico, and Tracy Ostrom, who some of you know, is the Globe coordinator for WestEd UC Berkeley partnership. And we both work with the Globe Mission Earth project. So today we're talking about storytelling with data. And why storytelling? Well, for one thing, we know that storytelling highly engages both the storyteller and listeners. We know that the storyteller engages them in a way that a classic presentation of the facts, usually doesn't. It asks the listener to visualize a story. And this ability to visualize, to picture a story, is a foundational literacy skill. Storytelling can present the facts with both visual and spoken imagery. And that's a great advantage because it allows the listener especially to have some deep critical thinking about the story content and meaning. Another literacy skill that presenters develop is determining the story sequence. Now that's not as easy as it sounds. So as a presenter, you often have to figure out what's the order of the data presented. What's the most important data? What does it mean? Really, what is the point of the data I'm trying to communicate? What is the story? Storytelling also provides an opportunity to incorporate cultural, linguistic, and place-based relevancy to the data. We know that learners are more cognitively engaged if the content is relevant to them. And as we heard from Jessica and Evangeline, NASA Langley has created a set of tools that we can use to help develop storytelling with data. And these are the pacing guides that Tracy will talk about next, although we have heard about them a little bit already.
I love the fact that, you know, we see, you know, as a community, we see this awesome resources and we all want to talk about it. We all want to share. And like, if you don't know already, there's these pacing guides. And of course, my visual is not nearly as cool as Jessica's visual on those pacing guides. But seriously, this is a great way for, and Jessica mentioned this earlier, this is a tough year for teachers again, right? We all know that. But this was a great way for us to provide an avenue by which our teachers could do 3, 4, 5 day opportunity to infuse Globe into their curriculum and really collect data, do something with that data. And our goal was to take this opportunity of this 3, 4, 5 day integration and really communicate to the teachers what the students had learned. So these are the pacing guides, as you all know earlier. They're on the Globe website. There's a lot of different topics within the pacing guides. There's different grade levels within the pacing guides. And it's just a really wonderful avenue. I highly encourage you guys to take a look at this. Our high school teachers really appreciated this opportunity to just like, hey, let me do something that's going to engage these students. It's not going to take a whole lot of time for me to do it because I'm having a hard time with teaching resources, etc. So these are the pacing guides. They're on the Globe website. You can take a look at them, and we hope you'll use them too. Thank you, Marcia.
Great. So one of the other great values of working with Globe and NASA is the ability for students to connect with a subject matter expert, or a SME as we like. And this is really important because you have the opportunity to bring a scientist right into your virtual classroom. And why is it important? It's especially important if the expert looks like, sounds like the students. And I've seen this in some of the presentations that the SMEs have done in New Mexico, and students are just kind of blown away by these subject matter experts, and they're interested not just in the content that the experts have to share, but they're also interested in their personal stories. And so I've heard it a couple times where students will ask the expert, did your parents make you study science? Like, did they force you to do that? And it's very interesting. They're very curious. It also gives students a chance to share their personal stories and ask very pointed questions to the experts. And so all this helps students to develop their STEM identities and to be able to even consider the possibility of having a career in science, technology, engineering, or math. So highly encourage you, if you haven't ever used a subject matter expert, you can connect with them through the engagement opportunities, the campaigns and initiatives, or from the pacing guides. And these subject matter experts can also help the students and mentor them in developing their stories from the data. And then once students do develop their story, how do they tell it? And what's a support for helping them present the data? So Tracy, back to
Yeah,
you.
so, always keeping in mind the Student Research Symposium here in the US, or the International Virtual Student Symposium, getting a scaffolding approach to those students who can tell their stories. And so in their research stories. So this is, we've created and it's on the Globe website as well, under the Globe Mission Earth page, an opportunity for students to tell like really simple stories based on these pacing guides. And so we really emphasize cultural relevancy, place-based learning, and really just a platform in which, as I said earlier, students can share what they learned with their teachers.
Thank you, Tracy. So there are ongoing storytelling opportunities, and you can check the Globe website for them. And these provide opportunities for students to collect stories and begin developing to collect data and begin telling their stories. So thank you for joining us today. Here are some resources. More are on the website itself, and we will stay if you have any questions for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janine. I'm a teacher at parochial high school in Mansfield, Ohio. I teach 7th, 8th, and 10th grade science and biology. And I just wanted to share with you my experience with Globe this year in my classroom. So I wanted to jump into the presentations and share a few slides about how my year went. It definitely was a crazy year. But I was given an opportunity that I have been asking for a couple of years, and I actually never thought I would get. But after bugging my principal, he approved my request to actually teach a Globe class for the whole year. So it was an elective class. So the kids had to choose to join it. So I was pretty nervous, and I didn't have any like curriculum for it, but I just always felt like every time I used the Globe protocols in my classroom that I didn't have enough time. I was rushing kids through activities and through projects because I had other things that were requirements that I had to get taught throughout the school year. So, and every single time I taught Globe stuff, I just thought, I could spend a whole year teaching this. I could spend a whole year on this kind of stuff. So I was really excited when my principal said, sure, go ahead and try it. So he approved it. Some kids joined. I had 2 7th graders and 5 8th graders join. And our school uses block scheduling. So I see them every either like Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. For 80-minute blocks. So I get a really big chunk of time with them. And I think that also helped make this a really appropriate elective class for our middle schoolers. For some context, I teach at a small parochial school that's in urban downtown Mansfield, and the students represent a variety of groups. We're only even like 40% Catholic, even though it's a Catholic school. So we do have a pretty good variety of kids. Here's a couple pictures of their projects on the slide here. Okay, so the structure of the class, I kind of started out the year with just open-mindedness, and I didn't have a real firm idea of how I was going to structure it. But how it ended up was I started out by reviewing the scientific method and some basic vocabulary, just to kind of ease the kids into then the globe topics that we would be discussing. Then I started talking about spheres of the earth, and then I started introducing them to what globe was and how to collect globe data and the different areas we could do that, different protocols we could use. Then we did something I've never done before. We did a whole class project since there was a small group of them. So this was really helpful. It was kind of like a practice project. And then after we finished the practice project, they did individual projects, and they all commented that they felt like they knew what they were doing because we'd already done the practice project together. And then we finished the year reading a book. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this book, but it's one of my favorites. It's called Seed Folks. It's by Paul Fleischman. And it's about a group of people that live in an apartment complex that come from all different cultural backgrounds that end up building a community garden in an empty lot next to their apartment complex. So it was very appropriate. It was kind of citizen science-y to end the year reading this book. And then we planted some vegetables, not in a community garden, but they took them home for the end of the school year. Okay, so things that were really successful were that my principal also gave me kind of a plot of land outside the school that was kind of like ours for our class. We didn't do a whole lot with it yet, but I just feel like it's a possibility for every year to improve on it and work on it. And it's just something that I can always have as an option with this elective class that I have. I definitely had to stay really flexible. Like we would come to things when the kids were working on their projects, and like the example given here, they didn't understand really the difference between causation and correlation. And so we just stopped working on the projects for a couple of days and just focused on telling the difference between those two things. So several times we would do that. And it was actually a really nice natural break from the kids working on the projects to stop and discuss something that, was very relevant that they needed to learn. My collaboration with Dr. C and Sarah throughout the school year was extremely helpful. Sarah Mierzwiak, sorry. We also took a few periodic breaks doing other things. For example, they painted some little rocks to go in the garden. So we did some more artistic things to just take little breaks throughout the year, since all they were really doing was working on these projects. Again, the whole class project was really helpful. And then the other thing that was extremely helpful was I worked with other teachers and students in my building, and they would come in during that block period to sit and hear about the kids' projects, to look over their information, maybe help them, ask them questions, or help them edit once it got closer to putting their posters together. And that was extremely helpful. The kids all commented, especially that they loved working with the high school students. They loved having the older kids come in, and they asked me multiple times, can we do that again? Can we do that again? So they really loved that part. And then I held my very first science symposium. I was really scared to do it. When I was hired at this school, the principal who hired me said, I will hire you as long as you carry on our tradition of science fair. And I hadn't, even though I said, oh, sure, I'll do it, I hadn't done one yet. I was very scared to take on such a big project and organizing, and but it was seamless. It was awesome. It went really well, and the kids said they had a blast. They all got Globe shirts. They were very excited about having official science shirts. So I think they had a really great time, and I even had a really great time. Okay. Just a few more. Okay. All right. So what have I learned and what will I be applying next year? When we collected data, I had already like spent several weeks going over scientific method and introducing Globe. By the time we got outside to collect data, it was fall. And then when we really got into the nitty gritty of going out and collecting data, it was cold. So I definitely will let the weather and the seasons next year determine when I go outside. Even if I feel like, well, we haven't covered stuff and we're not, I just send the kids out. We'll just collect it. Even if it's something that I have to say to them, like, we'll use this later, or I'll explain this later. Let's just go outside, collect some science data, make some observations. And then the other thing that I'm planning on doing is installing a frost tube in case I do have to collect, do some kind of project or collect data in the wintertime. I'll have that as an option. And then reading a book with them at the end of the school year actually went so well that I'm going to do it again. I've spent the summer looking through, and I found a couple books that I think will work well. And one of the books that I found is about a group of kids that do a science fair project by putting bee boxes on the roof of their school. So I think I've landed on a book. And then also very recently with a NASA Seas internship program that I've been helping with, I have met with some other teachers from across the country, and they have shared with me some ideas. And so I'm going to add STEM break activities periodically to break up the work of working on the projects. And then also I'm excited to try out a new group project idea that I got from Dr. Pippin that I'm going to steal from her. We're going to do our whole group project this year on aerosols and looking at how the wind affects them. So I'm very excited to do that group project and see the results with the kids that I got from her. And then I just really want to again thank Dr. C and Sarah Mazurek and Dr. Pippin and anyone else who helped me get this class kind of started. I have, I think my principal said last time I checked, 14 kids signed up to take it this coming year. So I doubled the numbers because the kids enjoyed it so much. And then I'm just really interested in communicating and collaborating with any other teachers who also teach a Globe class, so I can maybe learn more and get some more ideas. So if anybody knows any other teachers who have a Globe class, please feel free to let me know. And that's it.
Thank you.
Bear with me here. We have my name is Christy Bovington. Janine, that was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much. I'm finding the present mode. Here in Alaska, this topic is communicating Globe in changing times for our presentations today. And boy, is it changing times. My home has been out of power for over 12 hours, and so I came to the office at 5 a.m. so that we could present this. So let me get to present mode, but Janine, we'll have to chat. That was such a great presentation.
Yeah,
and
you can use the slideshow menu, or you can use the icon at the very bottom right of the screen. It looks like a little
this one right here.
Just to the left of that. Right to the left of the Zoom. Just to the left of that. Sorry, I guess
Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
Awesome. I also was out of power last night, so I got to come to the office to finish my presentation. So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so
And then-
much.
And then you can put that swap displays button at the top left.
I pivoted to make this in PowerPoint because I didn't have power, so I couldn't use Google Slides, which is where it started. So thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. My name is Christy Buffington. I formerly was a middle and high school math and science teacher, so I at a Catholic school, so I relate, Janine. And I'm also a science education specialist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and I have a background in watershed management. So I teach watershed management at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And on the right, you can see some thumbnail pictures of some of my students' International Virtual Science Symposium posters or projects. These are the thumbnails that they submitted. Now, these students were in a fall semester class, and I have had some success for them entering the International Virtual Science Symposium in the spring, even though they go on to other classes. So today's presentation is about that. And I also have an audience participation part as well that I put in the chat. So I honor the people of the place where I live, the Lower Tanana Dene people. I work on the Trothyeta campus, which is on a hill above the Chena River, which is a tributary to the Yukon River. So this is a place that where salmon have returned to for thousands of years to spawn. And thanks to the Lower Tanana Dene people and all of the Alaska Native people, the salmon have been, have returned for thousands of years, but now it has been impaired. And so part of what I am seeking to do in my class is to learn about the damage to the land that has been done due to colonialism, and also have students learn about how to repair and heal the land so that salmon can again return. So this is a field trip. This is a picture on the right of students going to Cripple Creek, which is a mining channel now. And for 50 years, it has been a denuded stream, and flow was returned to that stream in 2020 so that salmon could return. So I want, Janine set us off really well because she said that there's not enough time to do everything she wants to do with Globe. So I put in the chat a little prompt. I believe that hopefully you saw my chat in there. Finish the sentence. One reason why students do not enter the Globe International Virtual Science Symposium is there is not enough time to what? I'll give you some time to put in the chat why students don't participate in the International Virtual Science Symposium as much as we want them to. And I'm going to focus on some of these 4 strategies that we can all use as Globe teachers, partners, educators to make enough time for students to pick a topic, to get trained on the protocols, to develop their own research question and hypothesis, and to make an investigation, and ultimately for students to enter the data. So it's not so much time for the teachers to enter the data as well. And I really appreciate Marcia Barton, in your presentation, you were talking about storytelling and how important storytelling is really to launch students into caring about the environment around them and the place where they live, and then wanting to do Globe. So here in Alaska, we use the Arctic and Earth STEM, STEM Integrating Globe in NASA, Arctic and Earth Science Inquiry Model, and I am a team member on that project. And we start with learning from local people and scientists and Indigenous elders who tell stories about the long-term changes that they've observed in the land. So here in this picture, you can see a bunch of students on the Chena River learning about how development has affected the bank and how to study various topics related to that, so that students really are listening to stories. They're out at the place where they're studying. And then from there, we discover what students know. So very first day of class, I have a pre-survey, and that identifies key issues for the students. And then we identify a key issue for the community as well. And why this is backwards design. We start at what we want to end up with. We want to end up with some sort of a project to help the community address an issue. And so with salmon restoration, there are many, many projects where these students, whether they're middle and high school students or the undergraduates that I work with, they can go on and continue to work on these topics. So the next, how do we make enough time for students to get trained to use the protocols? And here I took my students on a float trip on the Chena River, and they are doing most of these globe hydrosphere protocols on this float trip for the first or second time. So they are, this student here is, she's holding, she's looking at air temperature, and then she's got her hand in the water because she's taking dissolved oxygen and temperature with the probe. We've got all of these other students. There's a Secchi disc. The student has a cloud chart, and everybody had a job. So then what they have is their data, and we unpack that right away. And here's their data on dissolved oxygen variability. So here's the same data set. We can use that then for helping students developing their research questions and then their hypotheses and ultimately their investigation. So the students got some data on their float trip, and we had different places where I knew that there were different outfalls that could affect temperature and dissolved oxygen concentration. And I presented this to them and asked them, using the question formulation technique, what they noticed. They got to come up with questions in 3 minutes by looking at the data set. And I could have told them that the y-axis ranged from 10.415 milligrams per liter to 10.445 milligrams per liter, and that this variability was not significant. However, instead of telling them that, I got them to look at the data in just 3 minutes, and they came up with all of these questions, including questions like, wow, what do salmon need to spawn? What do juvenile salmon need? What are average dissolved oxygen concentrations in the Chena River? That's a research question that came from just them looking at their data. Whereas other students were starting to guide their methodologies. Is 140 seconds, the time on the x-axis, long enough to actually make a measurement? So that is a tool that I use because there's often not enough time. So I use the question formulation technique. And I have some tools that I can share in the chat with everyone on how to try the question formulation technique using Globe. We've done some presentations together with many of you here on this call. Last year, Globe Mission Earth participated along with Jen Bourgeot with doing question formulation techniques and bundles. And so I can share those. Those are Google Forms. And then I also did a water cooler that I'll share in the chat. There's a YouTube video of how this works. And if there's not enough time for students to enter the data, what have I done? Okay, so this is something that I'm always trying to improve. On the one hand, on the left, we have Globe Observer. Some of my students do the Globe Observer app, they end up getting e-trained, and then they can enter the atmosphere data, and they can also bundle. They can make their own bundles through this app of what they want to enter. And then I also create student accounts for some students as well. And I also enter the data for them when it's necessary that there's paper. I mean, some of my students do not have smartphones, so they can't use the app. And then also, as college students, some of them go on and get further e-training so they can enter their own data. And one challenge I faced is that when students are entering data as a Globe V school, then it's a lot harder for me to see and track their data and ground truth it, not ground truth it, wrong word, but check it out. Whereas if I create a student account, then their data goes under my account. And so I do use Globe Teams to kind of track observations from the E-trained students versus the ones using the app. And I'm still learning on this process. So I think that Jessica, you entered, or you mentioned entering data, a teacher entering data one at a time. And I think that's been very key. And then if there's enough time, then I want to get to this slide as well. Uploading the student research project can happen anytime. So in the fall semester, I have students upload their projects to the Globe website. So their poster is on there. And then I had them have an optional, they could do the essay questions on the final, or they could present to me their International Virtual Science Symposium in December, their report. And they had to get all of the things that I needed, including that small size thumbnail image that would actually upload to the Globe website, and all of these other check boxes. And so my take home message is that we do have enough time to engage students in the IVSS. Here we have students checking soil temperature right before the ground froze last year in October. Janine, yes, talk to me about getting a frost tube in. We do that here in Alaska, so I was cheering you when you said that. And here are some of my students getting soil temperature data. And then that weekend, one of the students went on and used the baseline data that all of their classmates used, and then continued that work. And over the weekend, as the ground was starting to freeze, compared snow depth, surface temperature, soil temperature. So thank you so much for your attention today, this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And I have my contact information, my email up in the chat, and some websites that are helpful as well. And I especially want to thank my students and the Arctic and Earth Science team. Thank you so much.
Amazing catch, by the way.
I'm Mike Chabot. I am a Globe partner at the State University of New York at Fredonia. What I wanted to share a little bit this morning is a partnership / connection that we're trying to make between the Gen Ed science courses that I teach here, Earth Systems class, and an organization called the Critical Zone Network. So talk a little bit about what the Critical Zone is, and then how does Globe connect to that? So the Critical Zone is the term that was established by the National Research Council back in 2001 and focused on basic research opportunities in the earth sciences. A way to think about the Critical Zone is that thin veneer between the Earth's surface from the top of the vegetation canopy down through the soil to where it meets the bedrock. So it includes groundwater and how that fresh water circulates through the system.
Hey, Mike, we only
Mike,
see half of your slide.
Yeah, could you try unsharing your presentation and then sharing it again?
Sure. that better?
Much better.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I'm not gonna go back. I didn't say anything of value and showed. So basically just thinking about this critical zone from the top of the canopy to where groundwater touches the bedrock. I'm frozen. Okay, let's just use soil as an example. I gave a little bit of a talk yesterday with Larissa, very much her sidekick on that, about the ways that we try to connect the work that we're doing to the Sustainable Development Goals. So this course also tries to connect the science that we're doing to societal relevance. So we can use soil as an example. Many of the students that I have no appreciation for the importance that soil plays, even though we're in a very rural community and many of them are coming from an agricultural background. So when we use soil, it gives us the opportunity to look at climate and land use changes and its impact on the soil, and those impacts, how they impact the people that rely on that part of the critical zone. So just as an example of there are many ways to be able to do this. So critical zone defines this list of features that the critical zone contributes to. All right. We're going to share this presentation out afterwards. So it's basically the focus on this is on societal impacts, and also to build on the great presentation that Christy gave, and Janine and Jessica and the whole group. This focus also gives us some unique ways to look at research questions that students can pursue. So there are 9 critical zone observatories across the country. The process is the same at each of these places, although you'll see in just a second, the focus of the research at the observatory could be slightly different. Our closest critical zone observatory is the Shales Hills Observatory in Pennsylvania. So we partner with them, sort of take advantage of the SME concept. Critical zone doesn't call it SME, but having researchers that are there connect their work to some of the work that we're trying to talk about here on campus. So the focus of the critical zone is on this interdisciplinary scientific information. So my background is in physics and engineering, as well as geology. So I don't pretend to be a biologist like many of my colleagues that are on this call. So having the ability to have biologists from the critical zone observatory be able to talk about their work in light of the kinds of things that we're trying to do here. To my mind, the most important reason for this connection is it was an answer for me about how I can have students here on our campus collect data on the local scale, but also be able to see how it connects regionally, continentally, or even with globally. So 4 driving questions are at the heart of the critical zone science. So processes around carbon and particulates. So our work you'll see in a second around the carbon cycle, but also air quality, atmosphere protocols are nice connections here. How do the biogeochemical processes look at impact long-term sustainability of water and soil? So we spend a lot of time on the pedosphere. Part of it, we have a creek that flows nearby campus, but I will not tell a fib. We don't often get out on the water because of time. The next is, how does a process nourish ecosystems change over human and geologic timescales? So this is very much a societal measure, so a change in land use. So our land cover observations come to play there. And how do variations in chemical and physical weathering impact the critical zone? As I shared quickly when we were looking at the map of where the critical zone observatories, each of the observatories takes a lead on one environmental variable and tries to keep other variables constant to be able to draw these comparisons. They compare the data in the same way at multiple sites. Any of this sound familiar to the reason why we're at this annual meeting? Understand broad patterns in that behavior, and then create a community among scientists and generate this interdisciplinary understanding, okay? So all these things are very familiar to us at GLOBE. The Earth as a System class here combines these tenets with the Critical Zone Observatory to look at local scale using GLOBE protocols. So in this Gen Ed science course, the intent is not quite honestly to work on them becoming GLOBE teachers. It's more the opportunity for them to be able to see the role that science can play in asking and answering questions. We're very fortunate on campus that we have a small woodlot in the center of campus that became our micro critical zone. And so to quote, we do GLOBE protocols, but also to quote Jeff Bland, we spend a lot of time on the development of engineering experimental data collection systems. So putting out microprocessor probes to be able to collect data and be able to compare that data to the standardized GLOBE protocols. So very, very quickly, in looking at the air, organisms, soil, water, and rock, these are sort of the focus of the protocols that we try to work on. As I shared before, water is an incredible opportunity for us, but we just flat out don't have, by the time we get from campus to where the body of water we could monitor, our class would be over. So we use data that GLOBE teachers have collected at these sites as part of that discussion. I know Rusty is going to share after our break, but we also use that opportunity. The mosquito habitat is a set of protocols that we focus on quite a bit. We have frost tubes across our woodlot and the areas that border it. So sort of that edge effect kind of thing as we move from a field, a no-mow zone area that surrounds the woodlot. So we're collecting frost tube data, which is one of my favorite things to focus on. I would encourage you, the Critical Zone Observatory, their data, we heard a little bit about open science yesterday, their data is open access. So data sets that they've collected at the observatories, research papers that have come out of the science around this. And so I would encourage you to look at that as well in terms of connecting students. So I don't know, I think we're probably going to do questions maybe at the end after Rusty, so after the break. So if we don't get to that, my email, please feel free to contact me with any questions you have, and I'm happy to share anything I have. So thanks. And then this is that awkward time when you click stop share and nobody says anything. So then you're not sure if your audio was even on. So that's good.
You're on, Mike.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. So I think by our schedule, we are supposed to be going to break. Is that right? Then come back and hear the wonderful things that Rusty has to share.
I think you're right, Mike.
Is Roller there?
Roller still on, or Roller on mute if you were trying to talk? Or maybe he's handling a logistics issue. So let me just say, I'm pulling up the agenda. There is a break, and then we're supposed to start Rusty's talk at 10 after, so in 6 minutes.
So a very quick break.
So a water/rest break. And then we'll be back shortly. Thank you, Mike, and thank you everyone for your amazing talks. I didn't even realize my video's not on. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Allison, for doing that.
It still says host 500. Tony.
Don't mind. 1 minute. I forgot that. Get myself now.
Has everybody had a chance to share? Are there any questions?
No, they're on a break. They're on a break. There's a few minutes break before Rusty starts the second part.
Oh.
Rusty, it looks like you're sharing your screen, but it's black, or at least for me.
Yeah, it looks like it hasn't finished loading the.
Okay.
I wonder if it's just loading slow or if maybe she should try again. Because I think typically it shows that just for a second and then it goes away, but this time it's been up for a while.
Rusty?
Let's see. I don't see her here anymore. Maybe she just rejoined. Yeah, I think she's rejoining because that whole screen was frozen.
Got it.
Okay, hello, this is Rusty. Are you guys waiting for me?
Yes, welcome back. And
As soon as I tried to share my screen, Zoom crashed. So I've never, ever had that happen before. It's quite
it's happened to me a few times.
really okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's just see if we can make this work.
Sure.
Hold on 1 second. Okay. Share. Okay. So
Do you want to try that one more time? Just cancel the share and then try it one more time.
okay.
It worked, but it only worked for a very small part of the screen.
Okay, great. Let's see. Let's try this again.
Oh, there you go. That's perfect.
Do you have it now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Can you see? Okay, great. All right. Apologies. I'm going to talk 3 minutes less, which will be very disappointing because I have so much exciting things to share with you. Anyway, hi, I'm Rusty Lowe. Today I am talking about some very exciting things that have been happening in Globe and Globe Observer. And it has been such a delight to hear all the talks that have gone on so far, because it really shows so well how Globe is this beautiful way in which science and authentic research and education all go together so nicely. So this has been such an exciting presentation morning. My presentation is just a little bit different because today I'm not focusing on the students. I'm focusing a little bit on how scientists are using our data. So it's a little bit of a sidestep here, but I hope you enjoy it. And I'm just going to start out by saying that the most exciting thing right now is that we're now on the radar, and Globe Mosquito Habitat Mapper data are now being used by international health organizations. And in particular, we are coordinating with the President's Malaria Initiative and working with scientists in Mauritius, as well as in Ethiopia. So we're going to talk a little bit about how our mosquito data is being used, some of the cutting edge research that it's contributing to, and I'm going to end with an activity that you can share with your students to bring them into understanding a little bit more about computational literacy and AI. So this is the outline of the talk. I'm going to talk about how our data is being used publicly. I'm going to tell you about how scientists are asking for more photos, please, 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 and the important role that citizen science data is used, not just Globe, but worldwide, for artificial intelligence research and computer vision research. I'm going to give you just a couple hints on how to improve your data so it can be even more useful to scientists. And then I'm going to give you access to a really cool activity. So here we go. Just to reiterate, and I'm sure you know this, but the Mosquito Habitat Mapper does the 3 things that we need to do, especially for those mosquito-borne diseases for which we don't have vaccines. The only way we can protect ourselves is through surveillance, through mitigation, and through education. And the Globe Mosquito Habitat Mapper does all 3. Here's just a beautiful picture, right? So I want to thank everyone who has a circle on this picture here for your data. We now have over 34,000 data representations that have come through the Globe community. And these data are now being utilized in a wide variety of ways. Some of the ways they've been used is they have been highlighted in some research publications. Here are 3 publications that talk about the Globe Mosquito Habitat Mapper data. This was published in 2021. Just last week, we had another publication come out talking about citizen science and how it has an important role in mosquito surveillance and mitigation. And in this article, we made this beautiful graph that you can just see if you come from one of these areas, you can see your contribution to this data. It's so interesting because sometimes Africa is doing a lot. Sometimes in the US, we're doing a lot, particularly in our US summertime. When we were beginning to start up with the app, we had a lot of work we were doing in Latin America. And, you know, Southeast Asia and the Pacific has sort of led the way for the past 4 or 5 years, thanks to Doctors Malika and Krasanovic and their leadership. Here is a video of Joy Ann from Kenya. Let's see if it plays. If it doesn't play, we'll stop.
Mosquitoes are found in many parts of Kenya. Their occurrence is determined by altitude, rainfall, and temperature. There are 3 types of mosquitoes: Anopheles, Culex, and Aedes. Aedes is found in flood waters and it causes yellow fever, dengue, and Zika. The Anopheles causes malaria and it is found in swamps, ponds, or marshes like the one that is behind me. Culex, which is found in stagnant water and it causes West Nile and malaria. Malaria is a large concern in Kenya, not like Zika, which is not common. 1 out of 3 patients going to hospital have malaria, while 1 out of 7 patients admitted in hospitals have malaria. 3 out of 4 Kenyans live at a high risk of contracting malaria. Both Zika and malaria are caused by mosquitoes. We use the mosquito habitat mapper to identify their breeding places. When we identify the mosquito breeding places, mosquitoes are found in many parts of Kenya.
Okay, it's a beautiful video that goes on for 3 minutes. But what I wanted to point out there is here's this young woman who is very aware of the health challenges associated with mosquitoes in her area. And she also knows where the mosquito breeds. And so in Africa in particular, but also in Asia and other places, the malaria mosquito is one of the critters that we're trying to identify using the Globe Observer Mosquito Habitat Mapper. And we have this very nice pictorial key that was put together by our data services that's just wonderful, that makes it very easy to determine whether or not you have a Anopheles mosquito or a non-Anopheles mosquito, because these guys do not have that external siphon. So this is really great. So here is this mosquito that Joy Ann was talking about. It is the Anopheles gambiae mosquito. It's found in Africa. And as she told us very clearly, it's found in permanent or semi-permanent water sources. It, in terms of our app here, you can see by the icons, it's found in ponds and ditches and swamps or wetlands. And it's very, very common. And so because of this, we've known how to handle malaria in Africa. Bill Gates has put a lot of money into bed nets through his malaria initiative. And if people are using insecticide treated bed nets, it has dramatically reduced the amount of malaria we have in Africa. So this has been very, very good. This works because these guys are night biters. And it's traditionally pretty much a rural disease because it's found where you have standing water in local areas. But here's the question: what if in our fight against malaria, things completely change? And it has. There's this new invasive mosquito, Anopheles stephensii, and it is a container breeding mosquitoes, meaning that instead of in those ponds, lakes, and marshes that Joanne showed us, we have here these other containers where we're finding these guys. So they are in fact night biters. They're not night biters, they're also day biters. So can you imagine? Now we have to look at different places for mosquitoes. We have to treat differently for mosquitoes. And there's this possibility that these sleeping under nets is not going to protect people as much as it has in the past. So this is a huge, huge health issue that the CDC and the President's Malaria Initiative is trying to deal with today. So we have a lot of mosquitoes moving around. We have a lot of invasive mosquitoes everywhere. And we're actually trying to find those. So here is the team that's been put together for the AI, which is the artificial intelligence or computer vision team working on citizen science surveillance for Anopheles stephensii. There's a scientist here from Ethiopia, Mekesha. Ryan Carney is the PI on this project. A bunch of us are also working on this. And the reason why we are so important is in order to train computer vision algorithms, you need to have lots and lots and lots of photos. And you need to have photos in lots of different angles. And you have to have photos in lots of different resolution to try and train that algorithm so it can pick out and identify those mosquitoes. So this is now a specific call to someone who I see is on the call. So hello, Paul from Madagascar. Madagascar in 2020. So this is during the Zika project led by GIO. There was someone who found a Anopheles mosquito. And we found the Anopheles, we were looking through all the data. We found this Anopheles mosquito, but it was in a tire. Now, we don't expect to see in Africa, malaria mosquitoes in tires. We expect to see them where Joanne was showing us. But here it was reported it was in a tire. So our team got together, we pulled out this data, and then they ran the AI that they are developing to identify this invasive mosquito against the endemic. And they found out that in 2020, we likely, and I have to say this is still preliminary because we're right now, we have boots on the ground trying to find mosquitoes so we can do PCR analysis. But it looks like we found one of the first in Anopheles stephensi, the first one in Madagascar. And Madagascar is at high risk for Anopheles stephensi because it is a place with a port and lots of boats go in and out. So, but that's not the only, invasive we're worried about. So our friends in the Caribbean, and I know there's now a really cool project that's going to be starting in the Caribbean with mosquitoes. Aedes vittatus, Aedes scapularis. These are two mosquitoes that carry those same bad diseases, the yellow fever, Zika, dengue complex. These mosquitoes have never been in the US before. And I want to tell you that it was a citizen scientist, okay, not us, it was actually iNaturalist, but a citizen scientist found the first Aedes vittatus and the first Aedes scapularis in the US. So you're beginning to see how incredibly important our program is with respect to public health and diseases. We don't want these guys to become established because it will cause the same kind of problem that we have today with Aedes albopictus, which is the mosquito, the yellow fever, the yellow mosquito is Aedes aegypti, the Asian tiger mosquito is Aedes albopictus, and they've both now naturalized into the US as invasives, and they're causing huge problems. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know how exciting this research is, and a little bit of this is in the paper that I just showed you, and there's another paper which is coming out next week, of which we are also co-authors, that talks a little bit more about using citizen science writ large in mosquito work. So now I'm going to give you 3 pro tips that's going to help you present data that can be really used by scientists. And there are 3 tips. And so I hope you pay attention and help us get the best data we can because we have the capabilities. So the first one is we would like you to pay attention to when you are identifying your lat longs, your locational coordinates, you'll see at the bottom of the map, there is an estimated accuracy. And many times when you turn it on, it defaults to 65 meters. And then what you need to do is you need to press that little reset button, which is next to it, wait 15 seconds, press it again, maybe it goes down to 30 meters, wait 15 seconds, press it again, it goes down to 12 meters. I can get it down to about 3 meters if I'm not in the mountains, about 16 meters if I am in the mountains. So it depends on where you are and where the satellites are. But what you see in this data here, which is the mosquito habitat map paper data from 2021, you'll see that there's a lot of 65 meter data. And I will tell you that that is an anomaly. It shouldn't be there, right? But that is because all those measurements that were submitted, people did not wait until they had the satellite fix from the GPR receiver service. So please, please, please do that. It's very easy. All you do is take that little reset button there, which is a little bit hard to see, but click it several times at 15-second intervals until your accuracy no longer improves. And then you have the best possible data. So this will be really super helpful. Pro tip number 2. You can improve the usefulness of your larvae photos for AI research by submitting up to 9 photos of each specimen with close-up photos that cover the squares indicated. So basically the AI team that I'm working with, Sriram Chelapam, Ryan Carney, Sarah Zodi, what we're looking for is head, thorax, and an abdomen shots, especially the area where you have the siphon or non-siphon area. You want to catch all those hairs. And, it's really important, when I look at the data that we have, most people will submit 1 photo, maybe 1 photo of the whole mosquito, 1 photo of the abdomen. But Dave's team has built this so you can submit up to 9 photos. So the more you send, the better it is. And sometimes we can't see the features we need in 1 photo, but if you roll it over or push it a little bit, we can see the photos you need. So if you've got the time and the inclination, please submit a few photos every time you submit a mosquito. And remember, if you submit a picture of a mosquito, a photo of a mosquito, you do not have to actually identify it. The photo itself is really all we need. It's good to have the identification so we can cross collaborate, and also you can begin to understand more about your environment. but we are eventually going to take all these photos and use computer vision to understand what we have. Sorry? Okay, I didn't understand that. Okay. Pro tip number 3, this is a super important one. One of the great things that has come out of the this evolving app that we have is that you know, what's really cool is we have atmosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere all on one app, right? This is this is what Mike Jabot was talking about the, you know, the Earth, you know, the Earth is a system. And importantly, with the mosquito habitat mapper, if you finish the app, you making all your observations, it will say, will you make a land cover observation? Please do this. It only takes, you've already sat and gotten your satellite fix, right? It just takes really 3 minutes, up, down, north, south, east, west. You don't have to do the long, the time part where you have to actually describe it in percents. Even if you just take the pictures, that will help us. So please, please do that. Here is a dashboard that we have developed. We're working with some mosquito control agencies. One of them is in Chicago. And these are photos from that place where they are trying to use our photos in a way to better understand what the satellite data is telling them about mosquitoes. And we find that with the photos we have, we're able to pick up those microhabitats, those really special conditions that the mosquitoes need. So please, please, please consider taking a land cover measurement when you do your mosquito habitat mapper measurement, and we will be grateful for that. Because, and this is why, how do you make a connection between these little tiny mosquitoes that are buzzing around and space, right? And the answer is you can't see the mosquitoes from space. But the reason why NASA is interested in mosquitoes is because they provide this satellite data, which is utilized by modelers who are developing risk models to project future disease conditions. And so that land cover piece is the connection piece between the mosquito data that you collect and the NASA data. So it's pretty cool. Mosquitoes, really important because they tell us about climate change. They tell us, we now know from the data we have that mosquito seasons are starting earlier. They're ending later. Our mosquitoes are hitchhiking to new regions like the Anopheles, Stevensii, like the Aedes vittatus and Aedes, the other Aedes that we have there. It's just really, really getting very, very difficult to monitor these things. We want to keep things from naturalizing. But the fact is, as things are warming, the mosquito ranges are expanding. And so this is another reason why this is a very important Earth system problem. So I promised you at the beginning that I was going to provide you with a resource. And this is the resource. It is a activity. It was developed by Michael Guerra, who has been working, he was our Einstein Fellow for the past 2 years. He has developed this wonderful tutorial that helps people understand artificial intelligence and how NASA citizen science data is being utilized in it. And it is a wonderful activity. And so I encourage you to download this and utilize it with your students that have interest in computer literacy and in algorithms and all the exciting things that make science what it is today. Just our quick little ad here. We've got lots of resources for you to make that mosquito activity that you do out in the field, bring it to life, teach about diseases, teach about how we can protect ourselves, teach about the mosquito science. We have lots of resources available for you on our website. And the take-home message is that GLOBE students are contributing to research because their data is being used by public health scientists. They are contributing to research because they are doing their own research. And they are contributing to public health because the last step in the app is, did you mitigate the site? Did you remove the mosquito breeding site from use? And if it's a container site, you can say yes. If it's a lake, you probably have to say no. But look at these records here. We have up to 70% in the Caribbean and 50% in Africa, there is a lot of attention being paid to eliminating mosquito habitats. So this is really, really important work. And this data is also data. You know, even human behavior data in public health is important data. So I'm really glad that we were able to provide this to our community. And lastly, we were talking about doing IVSS projects and how incredible this experience is to work with science mentors, to work with real data, you know, original data, you know, primary data. And I just wanted to just show you that total submissions, all topics, mosquito habitat mapper data in the last 2 years has been averaging almost 25% of the projects. So it is very compelling. It's place-based science. It has a local health component. People care about their communities. And so we have really had a really excellent run in IVSS projects using our data. So I'm hoping that that will continue. Last but not least, I'm leaving you with this beautiful picture of an egg raft of culex, a pupa, and adult collected by one of our students. And lastly, if you have any questions, you know where to find us. I'm Rusty, and the Globe Mission Mosquito campaign coordinator is Cassie Sofing. We have the Globe Observer website. We also have the Globe Mission Mosquito website. And I'm really looking forward, hopefully, to making more contact with all of you. And if you're more interested in how this data can be used by scientists, please let me know. I'm also happy to talk to classes and to students and to get them excited about this one particular GLOBE protocol that has really important consequences for global health. So thank you.
Thank you, Rusty. And please fill out the survey for this in your virtual platform. Keep an eye out for the polls. And coming up next, we're going to have a break and followed by the sponsor Q&A. So thank you, everyone.
Thank